Well, press the record button. It is recording now. So hello and welcome everybody to the 30th episode of Hell in a Handbasket. So I didn't know if it was going to be if it was the 30th or the 29th, but because we ended up starting late, because Nunya went through a whole bunch of shit that man, it's an epic story, but I don't know if we should make that public.
Nah.
But basically some crazy work shit. Let's just say, man, this is why work sucks, dude. But anyway, and this is why, and of course, everybody knows this. People suck too, right? Everybody knows this. You know this too. Like, don't you kind of suck? Don't you ever be like, God damn, dude, it kind of sucks sometimes, right? God, you're not alone. People just kind of suck in general. So, you know what? The more of them you have to deal with, the more it's going to suck. That's my philosophy. Anyway.
I need to retire is what I need.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I'm sick of dealing with people.
But so in the date today is the 19th of September, and of course it doesn't really like matter what else we kind of wanted to talk about, because we have to talk about Charlie Kirk. And it's kind of unfortunate because I don't want to. I don't think that this is a useful exercise. I don't think that there's anything to be gained by discussing Charlie Kirk. You know, it's like you don't know enough, and not enough has been found out about it yet to really point fingers, even if it's this like kid that they caught, whatever his freaking name is, right? You know, he kind of reminds me of who was the guy who shot at Trump? The kid that shot at Trump.
See, I don't even remember his name. That's the funny thing. Like,
yeah, this is how inconsequential these people are. If they're trying to do it for glory, guess what? Nobody remembers you anyway. So fuck off. But anyway,
yeah,
so both of these fuckheads, look how similar they were, right? They're almost kind of like. Go ahead.
Ask yourself why that is, though. Like, why is it that we all know the name Lee Harvey Oswald or John Hinckley or John Wilkes Booth? Like, these are famous names that people remember in history for what they did, right? So why is it that Trump had 2 assassination attempts, and for the life of me, I couldn't tell you what their names are or anything about them? There's been complete radio silence from the mainstream media. Like, one of them is on trial right now, and yeah, like, there's no media coverage of it. None. You know,
there is some.
Ask yourself why that is. You know,
there is some. You know,
really.
You know what? There was more media coverage for fucking what's his name, that Luigi guy.
Yeah.
So think about, you know what's interesting. So you know who Walter Kern is? No. So he's like this old curmudgeonly journalist. You would really like his work. He would be right up your alley. He's very cynical about the world. And if he right away, when this whole, he has a podcast with Matt Taibbi. So Matt Taibbi had a podcast with Katie Halper, and he had an absence to write a book. I don't remember what it was that he wrote. I didn't read it. But anyway, this entire time that he was absent, he was pretty absent on Twitter, and he was completely absent from his podcast. And Aaron Mate from Gray Zone fame, who also worked for Democracy Now! And The Real News when they were good, he took over for Matt Taibbi. And I don't remember how long he did the podcast. He probably did it for like a year or something. Matt Taibbi comes back on, and like by this time, Aaron Mate and Katie Halper have like developed a cadence. And I guess like they're both Jews too. So in a way, it's like kind of adds to the funniness of the show. Kind of like they do a lot of like poking at that, you know? So kind of, it gave it a certain flavor that Matt Taibbi couldn't bring back to the table, you know? So,
sure.
So I guess Matt Taibbi got booted out of his own podcast.
Yeah. So, I mean,
it's highly worth watching.
Well,
it's just a funny microcosm. It's like I saw that story happen from my eyes. It was like funny. Go ahead.
Well, what do you want to talk about this Kirk guy? To be honest with you, I don't know much about him. Like, I've seen some clips of him like here and there. I think I understand his shtick. He goes around to college campuses, debates kids on a number of topics. But beyond that, I don't know a whole lot about him. I never really followed any of his stuff because, like I said, it all seemed pretty one dimensional to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
but, shouldn't have been shot, obviously.
yeah. So there's a couple of things that I've been like a couple of angles for this story for me to like hit upon in terms of, and I guess in a way, let me try to break it down like this. There's two parts of this story. There's the event itself, right? And then there's this massive, massive backlash. If you've been to Twitter, which recently I was able to get back on Twitter, if you go to Twitter, you see this constant, like Republican congressmen are harping on this. It's almost like they're igniting a fire. Like they're like purposely saying shit. Famously, Elon Musk purposely saying it's them or you, right? So like, and watch, mark my words. So that what they did is like they got some freaking I don't know. Like obviously, like I was just saying earlier, we don't know enough about what happened. Okay, let's just say it really was this kid. It was some kind of freaking Sirhan BS. Like he was partially hypnotized or something. He was highly trained and ready to do whatever it was, and they had a perfect patsy for the job, and really he was so that they did it right, which I still think is not definitive, but whatever. Let's say, so you could even go that far. Then um, what does that change at this point? Like, how do you like? I guess what I'm trying to say is that okay, so the two divisions of the story are the event itself, which is definitely a tragedy, and this backlash, which I think is by and large astroturf. When I see freaking people going out online and they're saying, yeah, like fuck Charlie Kirk and like they should get more of them, right? I'm like, dude, that's so sketchy, right? That's like some astroturf as bullshit. It's like not the leftists that I know that would be advocating for that, right? And then you have the people on the right, like I was saying, also trying to heavily ignite from their side. It's like a perfect event to just like try to cleave everybody apart and get everybody into a tizzy over, who. Think about this. Charlie Kirk was, but definitely on the right. Like this is not like Tucker Carlson. If you get Tucker Carlson, it'll be enough people on the right and enough people on the left. You won't really have that kind of divide. But Charlie Kirk, oh yeah, like that guy's definitely, and like you saw that crowd of the people at his event, Charlie Kirk is definitely a popular face and in the right, on the right. And so there's been a lot of conspiracies going around, like there always are, about did Netanyahu, get this guy shot, And I mean, I like I said, we don't really know, right? It could be anything but including what they actually say it is, right? Unfortunately, we have to even say that, even though it definitely is not going to be right. It could be it's still not something you would know. It's not something you would know, and it's not something that you should be getting into a tizzy about right now. Like this is designed. Like think about, like I always pay attention to this when I'm like glancing over the media, I'm looking over the media. Whenever there's a huge firestorm and it's almost like boom, click on, right? And then in the unison, stories coming out and stories hitting the front lines, variations of the same headline coming out, it's like the media knows where to go. It's not like, oh, some stories reported this, some people reported that, some people were saying, well, I don't know. Kind of like they about COVID, right? Right away, it's not voices that were like, oh, well, I don't know what to think about it, were challenged and oftentimes deplatformed, right? But the voices that we heard were people that were like saying, yes, we know that it helps prevent the spread. Like that's what they were saying, right? Anyway, I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but so yeah, this whole Charlie Kirk thing. Oh yeah, so see, this is what I'm saying. There is some footage of this dude, Tyler Robinson. See, like, and he has such a generic name. They put him in anti-suicide vest. Why? I mean, he's gonna probably isn't he? Yeah, they're gonna shoot him anyway. Like they're going to because this was in Utah, right? So at 8:02, Washington County Sheriff Nate Bobsky had received a call. Blah 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 blah. Doesn't matter. Charged with aggravated murder on Tuesday, allegedly knew it would be inevitable that he would be caught and was fearful of being shot by law enforcement. Yeah, dude. See, like to me, like this is such BS. Like, okay, see, go home, everybody. Go to sleep. We got him. You know.
Well, it could be, or he might have legitimately done it, right? Like, who knows? Like,
We yes, this is
what
true. We
what
have
I
to say
think
that.
is, like uh, way hypocritical is the folks on both sides of the aisle have completely flipped their positions from like just a few years ago. So if you recall during that height of cancel culture, which was being driven by the left,
Okay.
uh, like anybody who said anything that was anti woke or that questioned COVID or anything, you were canceled, you were deplatformed, you were fired from your job, all that crap.
But
That
see, you
happened.
say the left, but I don't think that's as much as the left because think about this. They did this in the military. They forcibly vaccinated people. I've seen videos of forcible
No,
vaccination. They've kicked people out of the army. They,
yeah, that
whatever.
was left. That was the Biden bunch,
I guess you know
right?
what. That's a good
Well,
point
maybe no.
in a
You're
way.
right. It was Trump too. Like
Trump did.
Trump was
You're
there
right.
too.
Trump
Yeah,
wanted to take credit for the vaccines and stuff,
but
right?
the cancel culture though
The
was
culture aspect of it, yes.
largely driven
Think about
by the
just think
left.
about how it was. I think part of it, how it like all unfolded, is you had this whole um the Me Too movement, right? Was there
Mm-hmm.
anything before the Me Too movement? I think Me Too movement is really kind of where the cancel culture started to gain traction because
Yeah,
I mean, how can you not believe women? People would say, which is
yeah,
kind of like if you think about it, that's absurd.
yeah.
Women to believe women. Uh, are you telling me that women somehow are like these magical creatures that they don't have any cases of instances of pathological lying or Machiavellianism and any women at all ever under any circumstances? That's ridiculous, right? So I think
Well,
like
look
they
at the
could,
hockey players. I don't know if you heard about that, but the five NHL hockey players that got charged with rape, and they just got off on it.
yeah, and even around that era, like around that time, there were stories of people that would get charged with this kind of stuff, and you know what? And they would get off, and when they get off, the story would go away. Like I remember
Yeah.
there was a metal band called Decapitated, and they were playing. I was in a state where I was living, and I happened to go see this band. I happened to go see Decapitated after the show, that show that they were at. Um, I guess they went home, like they went to their trailer with some chick. She banged one of them and then complained to the police. And it was
Yeah.
a huge story locally. It was everywhere until they got off. Like the guy got off like the next day because it was like some BS and he was able to like prove that this is some BS, right away. And like it hushed down. You didn't even hear anything about it anymore. So it's like like that's not the flavor of the season. That's not the mood. That's not the kind of stories that we're elevating. It seemed like around that era, and it was around that era, you had that happening. And remember how even a little bit before then, how controversial that Blurred Lines song was, where they were
Yeah.
saying, like, oh my gosh, this is the problem, right? They're blurring the lines between no and stuff. So it's almost like that's kind of cancel culture, I think, getting its kind of roots. And
Right.
then part of Trump's success, I think, is the backlash towards cancel culture. Not just Trump, a lot of people on the right
But it's
have
not
been.
though, because he's doing the exact same thing now that he accused the Democrats of doing. And that's the ironic thing. That's the only thing I take away from this Kirk shooting. Because like I said, I don't know the guy from a hole in the wall, but what I take away from it was you had the left.
He said some pretty extreme things. Like he
Yeah,
advocated for the death of Jackson Hinkle. I don't know
doesn't
if you
matter.
know
He's
that is.
dead now anyway. But like my point on it is you had the left who were driving cancel culture, getting all sorts of people canceled, getting all sorts of people kicked off social media, getting all sorts of people fired from their jobs. And it was the right who was claiming freedom of speech, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. And now, a couple of years later, the roles have completely reversed. and you've got the Republicans saying, cancel, 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 and you've got the left claiming freedom of speech. It just goes to show you how both sides are such hypocrites, and how anything they say doesn't matter anymore because they're the same fucking party, So, yeah.
Well, it's always been, a way to an artificial divide, right? As people have gotten more conscious of this artificial divide, it's been gone from being called the duopoly to the uniparty. I feel like people have become even more familiar with all this, with the game that's being played. Like the right has their issues and their hot point issues that they could try to draw people out on, like, I don't know, abortion. Then the so-called, Democrats, the so-called left, have their own issues that they could try to pull people out, like birth control. They're coming for your uteruses. A lot of analysts predicted a Kamala Harris win over the fact that the Democrats were pushing this abortion thing in hard. So, like, they each have their own thing. It's theater. It's political theater. It's so obvious. And so this is part of political theater too. This whole Charlie Kirk assassination. He wasn't a political, I think, anybody important. Maybe he could have become somebody important in the future. I don't freaking know. But I mean, this dude was not. I think the reason why Charlie Kirk is dead is, okay. So maybe there's the conspiracy theories that he started to turn against Israel, and that part of the reason, he was getting pushback, and he'd been largely funded by Israel, and so with all of the crazy shit that they've been doing with the pager assassinations and all this other crap, people are like, hey, what's up with the Netanyahu's extreme pushback on Twitter, talking about how much, like, are you overcompensating much, drawing murals and shit to Charlie Kirk, claiming him as one of your own. And then, his wife took, his widow now, took over Turning Points USA. So she's now the CEO of Turning Points USA. And who knows? We'll see if they're going to take a more pro-Israel turn. That won't really say anything for sure. It could just be that her personal political views are more like, or the way it's going to be run is going to be different. I don't know, for funding purposes, but whatever, you know what I'm saying? So there's that whole thing going on. Anyway, here's what I mean. Just case in point, they're keeping the story alive just today, right? This is today, I believe. September 19th, today. Yeah, watch. So, nearly 60 House Democrats on Friday voted down a resolution honoring the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk, including Squad Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who accused the slain conservative activist of being a bigot. See, like, okay, what's going on there? Who told you to say that? What do you think? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was watching Charlie Kirk all the time and she thought that he was a bigot and trying to do? No, I think not at all. I think that in the theater that's going on, somebody's telling her, like Nancy Pelosi or whatever, they're like, here's the role that you get to play. You have to try to get everybody riled up from, our side. And so when she says, poo-poo on the memory of Charlie Kirk, and other people bring up, well, what about the memory of other important people that died? Nobody's talking about the assassination of the Yemeni prime minister that happened. Nobody's talking about, there's other martyrs, right? Why are you picking this guy? And I think it's because he's obviously on the right. He is on the right. He's the right's owned. He was definitely not on the left. It's not like if you took out Joe Rogan, who's on both sides, everybody would be upset. This guy. And then I think that this whole thing is it's theater. It's BS, it's theater, and it's a way to try to incite. Okay, the resolution condemned in the strongest possible terms the assassination of the Turning Point USA co-founder and condemned law enforcement for arresting and charging Kirk's alleged killer, and condemned.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's all political theater. They want us arguing over whether or not Charlie Kirk deserves a resolution, or whether or not he deserves to be shot, or whether or not, all of this stuff that's just tripe, like none of it matters in the grand scheme of things. They don't want you talking about the fact that you've lost over 20% of your real earnings in the last several years. They don't want you talking about that.
Have you seen inflation? Have you seen what everything costs?
Yeah.
That just happened.
They don't want you talking about any of that, right? They don't want you talking about how your life is becoming increasingly shittier. They don't want you talking about the fact that shelves are starting to become empty. They don't want you to talk about any of this stuff. All they want you to talk about is nonsense, right?
Mhm.
And argue over nonsense. Who is Charlie Kirk? Who cares?
Yeah.
What's his connection to Israel? Who cares? Right? What's his connection to this guy who allegedly shot him? Who cares? Right? Let's talk about the big issues, the things that actually matter to people. Let's talk about why infrastructure is crumbling. Let's talk about why education sucks. Let's talk about why healthcare is becoming more and more expensive. They don't want you talking about any of that stuff. They want you boxed into a certain corner. So you're the left corner, you're the right corner, and the two of you can fight over whether or not Charlie Kirk deserves respect or not. Like
Mhm.
it's such like just nonsense. It's just nonsense.
Just such
And
a yeah, exactly. It is nothing. It's much ado about nothing. It is
right,
literally that's what it is. He was a okay. He was a popular somebody. He's a there's a lot of popular somebodies that passed away and we move on, right? And we
sure.
don't try to good days later bring it up in such a divisive way. So this is the divisiveness. The second part of the whole Charlie Kirk thing is the bigger story. The bigger story is why? Why now? What's going on? Is this
Well,
about some Epstein BS? Is this about some shit is about to go down? Maybe like here, what watch some crazy right wing extremists decide to gun down some left wing people. I don't know. They gunned down, I don't know, Bernie Sanders. Or I don't know, Bernie Sanders. Like, let's say they gunned down Jackson Hinkle, who um, Charlie Kirk advocated gunning down.
it's just a ways to, change the channel. That's it. They just Charlie Kirk, like you said, he's a popular figure on the right. The right is in trouble right now. Trump is on life support.
Yeah.
Every decision he makes is the wrong one. And everywhere he turns, people are looking for answers that he doesn't have for them.
I'm
So
just
what
saying
do?
how
You set
convenient.
up a murder, right?
You set up
So
a theater.
to
You set up
change,
a
yeah,
theater piece, a
change the channel.
tableau.
Yeah,
You set up a tableau. That's what would be the term. You would set up, you
yeah,
place the body out in such a way as to like create uh, um, a theatrical effect, right?
yeah.
So
I think so.
you create this gruesome theater, and when you want to get rid of some problematic leftists, who, let's be honest, they always hate the problematic leftists more. They hate them much. They're much more scared of them, I would say. So if there's any problematic ones, you know what? Some, like I said, like what are the problematic ones? Like, Haz Aldin or somebody like that. Caleb Maupin. Somebody gets gunned down, and then you know what they just say? Crazy right wingers taking you back for Charlie Kirk. You know what? Now see, look at this. The left and the right don't get along in this country after all, and then everybody's going to have this massive story. It's going to be a massive buzz thing. It's going to be kind of like, when you go to the supermarket and you're standing in the aisles and you look at the um, tabloids that they have, and it's always some salacious BS. Like, I don't know, somebody broke up with somebody else, somebody got caught cheating with somebody, right? Things that don't matter. Why would you ever spend a single like iota of your attention on these problems? And this is also a story that doesn't, like, yeah, it's sad that he's dead. I do not advocate for a murder. Let's all remember the good parts of Charlie Kirk's life and what he stood for, and hopefully he inspired people and all this stuff. Like just like you, I never really watched this shit. I know that he went viral with this whole "prove me wrong," where he would walk around, like you were saying, like to college campuses and say just get into arguments with underprepared, let's say, libtards who, with armed with points, like armed with some Ben Shapiro level knowledge, some shallow but argumentative knowledge when he was like super young. Like, and I heard Magus Blumenthal make this point. Charlie Kirk actually never really had a job. His first job was somebody found him and did Turning Point USA with him. Like he started going around in college campuses and stuff. Like, how do you do that as a kid? That's like, like 18 or whatever. It seems so odd. Like, you didn't just do that by yourself.
Yeah, he was probably an op too. And then, the thing about it is, and that's why, I don't really care that the guy's dead, because like I said, I didn't follow him. And from what I saw, it was all fairly one-dimensional. Like you said, he was, taking shots at, 18-year-old kids. And, did he deserve to die for that? Of course not. But,
of course not, right?
It just.
But will it piss off the people on the right who were his audience?
Of course it will, because
massive audience. Yes, it will.
You got a bunch of idiots on both sides of the aisle. And like I said, I go back to, it's no longer a left versus right issue, but the mainstream media and the elites keep trying, successfully, by the way, to make it a left versus right issue. It hasn't been a left versus right issue in like 20 years now, right? It really hasn't been. It's been a rich versus poor issue for the last 20 years. And they don't want you talking about rich versus poor. They want you to stay left and right. Because once you start talking about rich versus poor, they realize really quickly there's a whole lot more people in the poor camp than there is the rich. And they don't want you talking about that stuff. So that's all I see from all Charlie Kirk and his ilk are. They're just ops set up by their respective factions to promote a narrative and to collectively.
They are public relations products that are funded by and homegrown by important, influential people. Some of which we know, some of which we don't.
And the ones that we don't, I guarantee you, they're funding both sides, right? Because they want to see this happen. Absolutely. Like the real people in power, they're causing this. They're creating all this. They're sowing the chaos because they know that chaos needs to be sown. So the whole right versus left thing, they've been sowing that for decades now, man. Decades. And, anybody who pays attention realizes that none of it exists. Like, democracy really doesn't exist anymore when you think about it. Not in the United States. Right?
So what is it? Is it like the fact that the boomers still believe in Santa Claus, and until enough of the boomers go, we're just gonna have to pretend Santa Claus is real?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Like the younger kids are a bit more savvy when it comes to where they get their news, and they're a bit more questioning. But no, absolutely, these boomers got to go, dude, because they are just so woefully behind in anything that makes sense, right? Because they're just all so propagandized. There's no helping them whatsoever. They just got to go off and.
Yeah, dude, I was talking to a boomer, and very recently, 2 days ago or something, and I was like, reading. As I always doing, like reading the news and shit. He asks me like what I'm reading about. I'm like, dude, have you seen this shit about Ukraine? Like this news where Donald Trump is saying, well, Zelensky's gonna have to negotiate, and there are some other statements about and give up land or give up territory, etc. So, and I'm like, imagine being the Ukrainians. Imagine you can't back down now. You can't accept this deal because you would get everything you would get the same deal, but worse. Plus, you lost 1.7 million men. And that does not count the over 1 million, I heard, fighting age men. I was reading somewhere today, over 1 million fighting age males have fled the country since the outbreak of the war. Maybe a lot of them started fleeing before the outbreak of the war, sensing which way the tide was going. Who the hell knows? But anyway, Ukraine is, Ukraine is definitely and more increasingly, obviously, going not the right way for us. And you're seeing more increasingly like open statements about this. So I'm telling this guy about like what I'm reading, and he's like, yeah, well, let me tell you what, the Russians, they couldn't defeat a single army anywhere in the world. No army. anywhere in the world could they ever defeat without using their nukes? I'm like, what? I'm like, well, so I was watching Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, his podcast, and in his podcast, he was saying, ladies and gentlemen, like, if I'm afraid that if we had a fight right now with Russia, they would be able to wipe the floor with us simply because they were out of artillery. Like, they're outproducing us on artillery and drones and the critical weapon systems. So, like, don't fool yourself. If you could magically somehow get, hundreds of thousands of American troops on the ground right there, which would already be a huge thing, where you think the Russians wouldn't be hitting them, they would still be, due to the logistics factors, still in a dominant position, or a position of greater escalatory strength or dominance, let's say, right? So anyway, and I explained this to this guy, and I'm like, so let's put it this way: like, we don't have artillery, right? Marines are doing live fire exercises that are not live fire because we're out of artillery, because we've wasted our artillery. Because so like, the Russians can just outproduce us on something like stupid artillery, and if they can't, they can get it from North Korea. And he was like, yeah, well, Russian military corruption. So I'm like, yo, what about our military corruption? He's like, because he was like telling us, we pay 20 times more than the next 20 countries combined. I'm like, I'm not sure that that's the right statistic, but whatever. Let's say it is, right? What did we get for all that? We paid all that money for all this time, and the Russians are outproducing us on artillery. You see the problem? Our military corruption is different. Our military corruption took somebody to call our bluff, and for us to show that, oh no, we didn't think we were bluffing. I guess we thought we were serious, but it was a bluff because we don't have the raw numbers. Anyway, now that we're talking about Ukraine, I kind of want to hit this guy because as like a lot of people are talking about how Ukraine is going not well for the Ukrainians, right? This is why we're pushing for negotiations and all this shit. The Telegraph is going to tell us about a meeting that I guess what's his face? Lord Ashcroft had with Keith Kellogg. That's a Kellogg right there. So Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg interviewed by Lord Ashcroft at a secret location in Kiev. Yeah, of course. The location for my meeting with Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, a decorated war hero turned skilled diplomat, felt more like a scene from a James Bond film than an interview room. Chosen by his security staff, the entrance was hidden beneath unassuming city center bar, accessible only by a password. Oh, how exotic. On arrival, I was led to a dimly lit basement where I was ushered behind a dark curtain. Waiting for me was the 3-star Army general, a Vietnam and Gulf War veteran, who, as a key advisor to U.S. President Donald Trump, has been tasked with trying to bring peace to war-torn Ukraine. Yeah, this is the problem. You see this right here? Key advisor to U.S. President Donald Trump. What do they say? GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Like, this is your inputs. This guy, you'll see later, he relies on Ukrainian reporting of Russian casualty figures. Why would you do that? Okay. Don't you know that we probably have our own estimates and they probably are not as flattering? Why would you keep saying that? It's probably because he knows he's exaggerating, but he thinks that he's right overall. Anyway, here in Kiev, General Kellogg is feted by most Ukrainians, so much so that there are a host of cartoons and memes portraying him as a great protector because Russia has, so far at least, not bombed the city while he has been visiting.
I haven't seen any of those memes.
Yeah, me neither. The general, calm and welcoming, yet unmistakably firm. What is this? Like, why are you describing this like it's a novel? And you even brought up James Bond. Like, it's supposed to like get you psychologically like in the mood of like, oh yeah, dun 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 dun. This is some Mission Impossible shit. Lord Ashcroft going underground in Ukraine, war-torn Ukraine, while they admit it's not being bombed. So the Russians are like, oh, okay, well, we'll just leave it alone for now. We'll let you two morons have your interview or whatever. It's the whole article just reeks of like, just it's a propaganda fluff piece. Like, why are they fluffing General Kellogg's balls? Why? The general, calm and welcoming, yet unmistakably firm, spoke to me of Ukraine and its people with warmth and compassion. His piercing eyes revealed something else: strength, conviction, and an unshakable moral compass. There's no Oxford comma. It's the British. The British are the ones that don't do the Oxford comma, right? They're the ones that think it's beneath him.
I don't know what the point of this article is myself. Like,
well, just listen to what they're going to say, because you're going to hear the reason why they're fluffing his balls in a second. Because right now, so far, this has been nothing but a blowjob, right? So for Keith Kellogg, a man driven by principle, like another one, they're giving Keith Kellogg the Donald Trump treatment. This has been like every single paragraph has been like piercing eyes, welcoming gaze, compassion, James Bond 007 underground, putting himself in danger. The Russians don't even dare shoot at him. Anyway, sorry. Let's get through it quickly. Okay. For Keith Kellogg, Keith Kellogg is a man driven by principle. He also holds a uniquely powerful position, and he uses it to pursue peace while standing on the good side of fighting pure evil. That's right, boys and girls. The Telegraph needs you to think about the world like pure evil versus pure good. It's like totalitarian, like total evil, complete black versus complete white. The darkness is coming. After speaking with him for an hour, I felt something that has been rare in recent times: a renewed sense of hope that the United States has not abandoned Ukraine. With people like General Kellogg guiding the course, the international rules-based order and the security of future generations seems in capable hands. Today, the general's two official roles are assistant to Trump and special presidential envoy for Ukraine. Yeah, this is why Donald Trump's pissed off at Vladimir Putin. You're usually pissed off at this guy. This is your special envoy to Ukraine. I think I know why you're not making any progress in the negotiations. The president had wanted him to be special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, but Russia, effectively President Vladimir Putin, objected to the latter role. I took it as a compliment. They realized I'm not going to roll over, he said with a smile. So he took it as a compliment that one of the sides said that you're an unacceptable broker of the peace process. You're not qualified for this job. The way that Russians would put it, you are inadequate for this job, for this role. And he is inadequate for this role, because you can see what he's doing. He's not even in this role, and look what he's saying. Okay, it's not long into our interview that I realized why perhaps the Russian dictator had taken his stand. Putin is a KGB agent, the general said. Quote, he never stopped being one. He doesn't understand the West. He pretends not to speak English, but he does. And we've caught him out several times before. He's a manipulator. The only thing to counter that is strength, power, and force. Asked whether he agrees. So listen, see what this guy's saying? The only way to counter Vladimir Putin, who's a manipulator. Why do you think the Russians might not want you to be an envoy during this peace process to them? Look at this. Like, you're far from an unbiased mediator. What is this BS? You're already saying that Vladimir Putin is a liar. He's a manipulator. The only way to talk to Vladimir Putin is strength, power, force. What kind of a mediator are you? What kind of a negotiator are you? What kind of a negotiation is this? This is not the language of negotiation. This is the language of maximalist demands. Asked whether he agreed with suggestions last week by Mike Pence, the former U.S. vice president, that if Russia conquered Ukraine, it would move on to attack a NATO country, General Kellogg did not hesitate to respond. Absolutely. You have to look at Putin and Russia as an expansionist power. He wants to reestablish the Russian Empire. Just look at history. Give him an inch, he'll take a mile. At least he had the good sense not to say, even Vladimir Putin says, because he knows that people like you and I know that's bullshit. He just asserts it. He just says it, right? It reminds me of World War II. In Munich in 1938, Hitler said that he only wanted the Sudetenland, then the Rhineland, then Poland. Then we were in the Second World War. History doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. That's exactly what's happening with Ukraine. We must stop him now. Oh my gosh, dude. This is the guy that was supposed to be this is the special envoy to Ukraine, supposed to be the special envoy to Russia. Yeah, you are definitely inadequate for the job, if that's what you think. And you're willing to even say that. Let's say you think that, at least keep it to yourself. No, he's willing to just like spill the guts, spill the beans. I asked General Kellogg, whom I had met briefly in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad in 2004 after the Second Gulf War, where he thought Putin should face trial as a war criminal. He replied, "That's for The Hague to decide. I believe in fair trials. If he's convicted, then he should be held accountable. But frankly, I don't expect him to get there. It has been disappointing to see many nations give him a pass." General Kellogg believes the firing of 19 unarmed drones by Russia into Poland last week was deliberate. If it had all happened at once, maybe you could call it an accident. But 6 hours of drones, that's a test, a way to see what the West would do. And we have to respond like it's a test. So, I mean, surely General Kellogg knows that's bullshit, right? At this point in time, like, I think that we are getting the picture here. What's happening is he's lying through his teeth. He's being political. He knows that what he's saying is not exactly the case. He's not exactly true, but he thinks that this is what's needed to bolster morale, which is the same trap that we fell into during Vietnam, during Iraq War II, during Afghanistan, where we kept just thinking just a little bit more. You know, that's what they kept telling the president. But guess what? A little bit more led to the forever wars. And now where are we? We're losing. We lost the war that we picked with Russia. When the North Koreans told him that they were a nuclear, he also believes that Putin's aggressive boasts of being a strong nuclear power must be confronted, not shied away from. For context, he gave an example of Mr. Trump's talks with Kim Jong-un. When the North Korean told him that they were a nuclear power, Trump's response was, "So am I. I've got a big red button too. It's bigger than yours, and mine works better." Putin is a realist, and if you raise the stakes, he's going to fold. This is disastrous advice. Are you kidding me? This is what he's whispering to Trump's ear? This is what he's saying to him.
I've heard this argument before, except it was directed towards the Chinese, to which the Chinese replied, "Yeah, you might have more nukes, but we only need one." And they're right? So, you know, we only need one to do a lot of damage. So, you know, the fact that we've got more than you doesn't matter is basically what China said. And they're absolutely right.
What is he saying? Call Putin's bluff? Is that what he's saying? Is he saying, no, let's move on.
I'm done with this article, dude. Like, this guy he doesn't deserve the ink. Move on. No, I'm done. This guy has got nothing valuable to say.
Let me find the statements, the direct statements from Kellogg then. Okay. I'm not going to read the article. I'm just going to read the statements. "That's not fair. Trump's trying to give diplomacy every chance. When he said he could stop the war within 24 hours, he was aiming for legacy. He quickly realized it's harder than expected. Personalities matter. Ukrainians are ready for a deal, but Putin isn't. He is being misled. Putin. He unfortunately thinks that he's winning this war, but he isn't. So Trump is just giving him latitude and the time to come to the negotiating table. But we still hold the cards." Yeah, so what he said, does he think that? Does General Kellogg, he must be thinking that.
Just move on. Like, this guy's got nothing useful to say. He's irrelevant. Move on. Like, he's never been relevant. So... yeah, he's useless.
So anyway, as that's happening, here's another article. So this is that's what General Keith. This was much shorter. You can relax. This is Timothy Ash, senior sovereign strategist at Blue Bay Asset Management in London, says European policymakers are belatedly waking up to the fact that the war in Ukraine is set to be prolonged, and that they alone may have to foot the bill. Wait, what did Lieutenant General Kellogg say? He was saying that the Russians are losing the war. He said they're not winning the war. They are losing the war. I cannot remember a period over the past 3.5 plus years when we appeared further away from any peace. Ash said after meetings with Ukrainian and NATO security officials, there is dawning recognition here that A, Putin is just not serious about peace, if he ever was, and B, if he was, the Trump administration seems to have so badly screwed up peace talks. Trump has gifted Putin all the early leverage and is now creating obstacles or excuses to delay rolling out more sanctions on Russia. According to Ash, Ukrainians are resigned for a long conflict, but determined to continue. They know it's a zero-sum war for them. It's about survival, he said, citing a KIIS poll showing that 62% of Ukrainians are willing to endure a protracted war, with 14% favoring negotiations on Russia's terms. Financial burden is now falling squarely onto Europe. Europe has finally understood that the cost of keeping up Ukraine's defense against Russian aggression is running at $100 billion a year. I would argue that $150 billion a year is needed. And the U.S. is not writing any checks, and that the full cost of supporting Ukraine has to fall on Europe. With European budgets strained and populist pressure to spend at home, the harsh reality is that the only source of sufficient funds for Ukraine is now immobilized CBR assets. Whoa, look where we've arrived. The only option for us to be able to continue to fund Ukraine. That's how screwed Europe is. So Europe's like, okay, you don't want to keep this going, we'll keep it going. But the only way we can do it is if we approach taking Russia's assets. They talked about it so much, they're definitely going to do it. Like it's like Chekhov's gun. This is, Chekhov's hostage bank account, they're hanging it up there and they're going to come for it. They're going to take it anyway, definitely. So now they're saying, no, you got to go for it now. Maybe the debate is who's going to get them? Like how much of I pledged this much aid, so I get that much of these assets, Like, so I think that there's something going on there. Like, I think part of the negotiations right now. So I think that there's a set of negotiations going on about how much further are we willing to escalate on Ukraine. I think that's literally a serious debate going on right now in the halls of power. But the other one is this: who's going to get what's left of Ukraine? Number one, and number two, the Russian assets.
The Russian assets will go straight to Ukraine, right? So they'll float Euro bonds, which will be paid for by the various countries, right? And the money itself goes to Ukraine.
Yeah, but okay, Germany can pay itself from those funds for providing however many Leopard 1 tanks,
Oh, no, they're not going to provide any of that because they don't have any of that. Like any weapons that are bought would have to be procured by the U.S. or somebody else. Like Europe doesn't have anything left. And actually, half of that money that Zelensky requested is for like the civilian aspect of things, isn't it?
Right,
like,
just to keep the things going,
just to keep the government running. Right. So, clearly this is not going to come to fruition because all of the European countries are not going to agree to it, right? Like Hungary's not going to agree to this. Slovakia is not going to agree to this. Slovenia is not going to agree. Croatia is not going to agree, and so on and so forth.
Mark my words, they're going to steal those assets. They're going to find a way.
But how can they if they don't have agreement within the EU bloc, right? Like, wouldn't they need unanimous consent in order to do this?
I'm just telling you, my gut instinct is.
Me too.
I'm looking at it, I don't know what the legal mechanism is. I mean, we all know it's not legal to do this anyway. So I don't know what the loophole legal mechanism BS they're going to do to justify it, or if and when the time comes. I'm just saying that they're not. I think they're setting this up. They're not setting up the table for nothing. They've been setting this table for a while.
I think they're at the end of the rope now. And basically, they're out of options. The only option left is to seize the frozen assets. And basically, once they seize the frozen assets,
the only source of sufficient funds for Ukraine is now the immobilized CBR assets.
So if they were to do that, though, that'd be the end of Europe altogether. Nobody would ever invest in Europe ever again, right? Why would you? Right? Like, why would you?
It would just accelerate the rise of BRICS even more. Countries that have one toe dipped into BRICS are going to jump into BRICS. Like you're giving people a reason to do the uncomfortable process of separating themselves from your financial system. Don't do that. All those corrupt elites that have their bank accounts in dollars and Swiss, banks and stuff, they don't want to have to do this whole BRICS nonsense, right? You're forcing them. Anyway, so according to Ash, Ukrainians are okay. So he pointed to shifting political signals. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has endorsed a reparations loan plan, while German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is reported to support the creative use of immobilized CBR assets. Ash argued that the problem so far is the whole debate has been driven by legal complexities, not the economics. The legal complexities have given the politicians the cover not to do the right thing. Now the economics are driving the politics, and the legal has to follow. Beyond financing, the conflict is evolving technologically. The conflict is evolving technologically. One phrase I heard this week sums up the war in Ukraine. It is now a war of iteration, Ash said. While the front line is mired in attrition, the war could perhaps ultimately be decided by which side innovates or iterates the best in the drone/tech war. He warned that Russia currently has the advantage in scaling up production. Ukraine's ability to match this may depend on Western support for industrial production. The obvious place which could deliver the manufacturing scale quickly for Ukraine would be Turkey. Suggested perhaps all this could be funded from immobilized CBR assets. Oh, the irony of Russian taxpayer money being used to buy reparations bonds for Ukraine's military industrial product to defeat Russia in this war, yada yada. So what we're reading here is that he's saying, listen, this situation is bad. We can't afford to keep funding the war. Does that sound like Russia is losing the war? Or does that sound like the proxy war, which is being waged by the West, is in serious financial crisis right now? They're in serious financial crisis mode. That's what it seems like to me. This is what is the reality. So if you're out there and you're still peddling this line like Keith Kellogg is, that must mean that you know that you're lying, right? You are doing this propaganda piece, just like I think just like General what's his face, Wesley Clark, and the other one that you constantly see his face is super annoying dude.
Petraeus?
No, not Petraeus. Whatever. All of them, they're all full of crap, and they must know it. They must know it. Oh, surely sure. You don't have less information than somebody that just has access to Telegram. Nobody gave General freaking fuckface over there a phone that had Telegram on there and said, hey, check this out. Look, this is how the war is going. Here's your narrative. And of course, there's no need to do that because he knows. So they're trying to rescue the situation. They're hoping for a miracle of some kind. And what happens if they do mobilize those Russian assets? What then? The Russian economy is, so I heard this on Russian media, I think earlier today, where they were saying, there's a famous saying, Russia has two allies, the army and its float. It's naval contingent, right? So our army and our navy, basically. Russia has two allies, the army and the navy. And this dude was saying, well, we have a third ally now in this particular war, and that is stable economy. This is like a huge pillar of this war, and it's one of the fronts. Like they're treating the stabilization of the Russian economy as one of the fronts in the war, which just goes to show how Russians have a completely different and much more holistic understanding of war in general than we do. To say like, oh no, the financial pressure is part of the pressure that is being used to try to achieve the political means or the political ends. This is one of the means, as is military pressure, as is diplomatic pressure, as is whatever, Yeah. So that more holistic approach to looking at this, like obviously it's I think a healthy way to look at war. Healthy way. So yeah, this guy's like freaking, what's his face? He's from fuck it, I don't know. It's not saying, but I'm pretty sure he's with Atlantic Council. So I mean, this guy's like a hardcore propagandist. But this is what the hardcore propagandists are saying. This is why I want to read that one in particular, because you can find a lot of articles saying that things are not going so super well in Ukraine, but you can even find people that are beyond that. They're not on the same level of talking about, the New York Post, Fox News level of news. And they're saying, listen, what we need to do is we need to figure out how to continue to fund the war at $150 billion a year, which we cannot do. How much were those frozen Russian assets? Was it like 300 billion? So let's say it's 150 billion. So let's say you fund the war for 2 years.
It keeps dropping, actually. It started out at 300, and last I heard it was 170. Oh. So, I couldn't tell you how much it is because, the numbers keep changing.
But yeah, so basically it's getting more and more obvious. Like here's a story from Military Watch magazine. This is talking about how Ukraine is using MiG-29s and how their MiG-29s are far outclassed by anything that the Russians are using. And they also talk about how in the numerous air-to-air fights that have happened in over the territory of Ukraine. Ukrainians have won not a single one. So every single airplane versus airplane engagement that included humans in there, the Ukrainians lost every single engagement. They literally actually admit that. I wonder if I could like find it really quickly without. What if I control F engagement? Engage. No. No, I can't find it. Whatever. I'm not going to go through it. But basically, this is what this article said. That's kind of why I had it out. So yeah, I mean, well, I want to talk more about Ukraine war stuff. I think that there's more to bring up. But I mean, what seems like, excuse me. Seems like you want to. I don't know. It seems like you want to move on from Ukraine war stuff, or are we still down to look through more stories I have, or
all these guys they say the same thing over and over again, and it's consistently wrong. So why bother even giving them the time of day?
Because why are you bothering to do this, and why are you bothering, and who bothers to give you airplay, and how did you manage to land in this position? If this is how you look at this conflict, you are worse than an ignoramus. You're worse than somebody that just looked at this issue and just like, did like a, what, I'm just going to do like a 50-50. I'm just going to coin toss my way through this shit. Because why? Because you're actively sabotaging it, right? So what is it that you were trying to get? What is it that these people in the halls of power who could put this guy up for Trump to have him be his lead dude on Russia and Ukraine? And think about this. Every time that the Russians, there's been kind of like some kind of diplomatic progress with the Russians, it's been freaking Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to Russia that, goes in there, just mano a mano, talks to the Russians and gets things moving, gets things going. So you can tell, and you could listen to Steve Witkoff's statements from his meetings with the Russians, and he was talking a lot about red lines and understanding, like developing a shared understanding rather than having this guy over here, this clown over here talk about, like, it's funny because he just showed his colors. Because here's the thing, like, he's tried to seem even and kind of like above the fray at first. What the hell happened that he just like lost his shit and all of a sudden just lays it out on the table, just like spills the beans, lays his guts out, and he's just like, actually, no. When I say negotiate, I mean Russia must capitulate.
Well, this guy was put in place because he is a deep state puppet, right? That's why he was brought in as Trump's envoy, right? You don't think Trump actually picked this guy, do you?
Definitely
that's
not.
What I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, people like this, they've moved on. Europe has moved on, right? Trump called their bluff. No, it's over. It's over. Trump called their bluff with the whole India-China tariffs thing. And you're going to see this wrap up really quickly now, because basically what Trump has done for himself is created that opportunity to pull out. So, and that's why he said it.
Well, I would like to remind everybody of, and this is not the first time I'm reminding everybody, that this has been our prediction from the get-go. Remember, Hell in a Handbasket started around the time that Trump got elected. That was like some of the first stories that we did. And what did we say all the way back then? We were saying right off the bat, hey, he's going to try to push Ukraine off onto Europe.
Well, of course. That was all, but that was Biden's plan too, right? Like, so
I don't think so. I don't think Kamala Harris had the same plan.
No, it was. They were going to pull out of Ukraine regardless, because they didn't have the support in either the House or the Senate, right? They weren't going to get another funding bill passed. So it was the plan to dump this onto Europe even when Biden was still in there. It's just, Biden was so useless, it took time. But no, this is the exact same plan, man. Exact same.
Continuity of agenda, as Brian Berletic says. I mean, let's be honest. Just in your point into your theory, Donald Trump has always chickened out. He's always been a bitch. So yeah, I mean, when push comes to shove and he has to put his balls to the wall, I think that he consistently backs down. I think that's probably why he's surrounded by people like that, because even when it comes to making a stand as to who's going to be his advisory, group, his advisory ecosystem, even there, he is willing to take on people that he probably never knew before, never heard about, and just like take them on because somebody said this is the right guy. Kind of reminds me of like the Obama getting elected, and then the was it WikiLeaks that leaked the memo of like Goldman Sachs and a bunch of other banks literally picking out Obama's advisory board, like his cabinet, like choosing which people would fit which positions at a time when everybody else thought that Obama's going to take it to these guys. He's Obama. Oh my gosh. He's going to hold the big banks to account. Nope.
It's the same party. That's the thing. It's the same party, same party, same agenda, same everything. So, if you think that there's any real difference between Democrats and Republicans, with the exception of like window dressing, that's all it is. That's all it is.
And when I see these people freaking out about Donald Trump's a fascist, Donald Trump's being a fascist, I'm like, dude, were you freaking out over George Bush being a fascist, or Obama doing all kinds of fascistic shit? And he was supposed to be a constitutional lawyer, violating the Constitution like crazy, right? Killing American citizens without due process and all this kinds of other kinds of crap, right? So, I don't know. Yeah, so here, let's we have about 30 more minutes, so I think let's see. I want to touch upon this one, and I'll see what else I have that's cool, and then we can go off to 2 scoops of crazy. You did get it this time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I downloaded your video that you sent.
Okay.
I'll upload it now.
There we go. Okay, so special presidential envoy Keith Kellogg on Monday said that he and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff recently advised President Trump that Russia is losing its war in Ukraine. Garbage in, garbage out. This is why you get this garbage policy. When Donald Trump's getting pissed off at Vladimir Putin, you got to be getting pissed off at Keith Kellogg, because what's happening? You're coming to the cards and somebody's like, hey, Donald Trump, this is your leverage. You're coming to the table with, I don't know. I played poker once and I did not know what I was doing. So you're coming to the table with, a working like submachine gun, and you're coming to the table with a water gun meanwhile. And then you're wondering why you're not getting the results that you would be getting if you had a working submachine gun, because you're the only one that thinks that. Everybody else can see it's a water gun, bro. So it's like, yeah, you got this guy informing you on what cards you're holding. And right now we can see what he thinks. This is what he's saying. This is what he's telling you. He's not telling anything different to Trump. That Russia is losing the war. Its war on Ukraine. Notice that language. Russia is losing its war on Ukraine. It's Russia's war on Ukraine. As Moscow has seen more than 1 million casualties while taking less than 1% of Ukrainian territory since November 2022. So he's repeating the same tropes, as you were saying, right? You're like, they're literally saying the same thing over and over again. That's not by accident. It's not that everybody actually literally thinks the same thing, right? Everybody thought about the same idea and came up with the same exact conclusion, from the news host to, the lieutenant general to Donald Trump to J.D. Vance. No, it's that this is the official talking point. This is the line that we're moving out. This is the official position that we're taking, right? Speaking at the Alta European Security Conference in Kyiv, Kellogg revealed that he and the chairman, Air Force General Dan Kane, each reassured the president of Moscow's wilting position roughly 6 weeks ago, shortly before Trump's meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. So this is what's up. This explains some things about that meeting. Donald Trump thought that he was in a position that he had the Russians where he wanted them. They were like, okay, right now is a good time. The Russians are going to be screwed in the next 6 weeks. Anyway, the Russians are screwed. Donald Trump calls this thing, yeah, you came to the table with a water gun. It was not a loaded submachine gun. If Putin thinks Russia is winning, his definition of winning and my definition of winning are absolutely two different things. Oh, well, it's a good thing that you actually noticed this, Lieutenant General Kellogg.
Why are we wasting time on this guy? Like, he's useless. He's absolutely useless. Why are we wasting time on this guy?
Because this is Trump's president. He's his advisor, and he's his envoy too.
Here's the thing about Ukraine. Like, nothing's going to happen in Ukraine until the EU come to the realization that there's nothing else that they can do. And that's going to come really soon because they're all broke. No, they're all broke. So, and nobody is going to, like Ursula she can propose whatever she wants. She doesn't actually have any power. So, it's the nation states that would have to vote on this and actually cut the checks. And they're not going to.
And
so,
put the
this
manpower.
is all theater. Yeah, it's all theater. And as things get progressively worse in Europe, they're going to turn more inwardly like the U.S. is. So I think this thing gets wrapped up.
Okay, fine. Then explain this to me then. Why the hell is he basically... It's almost like, you ever argue with somebody that is like a narcissist or something, and they just completely don't listen to anything you just said, anything you just responded, and they just repeat the last thing that they said again.
Right.
So it's like, that's kind of like, go ahead.
Well, Keith Kellogg is a fart catcher for the MIC. Like, he knows where his bread is buttered. He knows that, if he wants to get those board seats and, consultant gigs and whatever, which is where they make their real money after they retire, it's with the MIC. So he's nothing more than a propagandist. He'll say anything for a cookie, right?
So I get that, dude. Okay, so let's put it this way then. The puppet masters behind Keith Kellogg that are using him to mouth off, that are using him as a mouthpiece to say whatever it is that he's saying, which we can see, we can read. It's the same thing every other mouthpiece is saying, right? What is their point then, right? Because if you must know that you are losing, so what are you trying to do? Are you trying to, let's say you're right, it's MIC, Keith Kellogg's looking out for his future nest egg. So what is he going to do? He's going to follow their orders, and their orders are keep up the hardcore rhetoric against Russia, because even if we pull out, we still want to sell the equipment to the Europeans. You can still sell the equipment to the Europeans anyway. You don't need... You can be selling that regardless. The Trump's already on board with that.
The American plan is very clear because it hasn't changed since Trump took office. And that's, we're pulling out. We're happy to sell you weapons. If you guys would like to keep, funding this money-losing dog, be our guest. But we're out.
But remember what Lord What's-His-Face was saying. He's like, after talking to General Kellogg, Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, I felt reassured that one of the other things that you've brought up multiple times, that literally, in not so many words, we just have to outlast Trump.
Yeah, exactly. These are propagandists who are just trying to outlast Trump. That's it. And it won't work.
Who cares about outlasting Trump if you're getting everything done with Trump there in the first place? Like, what has Trump even done?
They're not really, because there's no new money coming in. So, and Trump has dumped everything onto the Europeans. So, Trump hasn't done nothing. He's done lots.
You just said that they would have done that regardless. I actually agree with you the second time.
Well, let me finish though, because Biden was going to keep it going, but he was going to be more nuanced about it. Like, he wasn't going to come out and straight up say, we're out, like JD Vance did. He would have kept jerking them off, right? And that's what Kellogg does. Kellogg's just trying to keep jerking them off under the table to, keep the support there on the European side. That's it, right? At the end of the day, all they want to do is sell weapons. They don't care who buys them, but they don't want to spend money on it. That's where America is with this now. And the Europeans, the sooner they realize this and then pull out themselves, the better off they'll be. I think that's coming soon.
I think there's a tussle. There's a fight going on over people that want to escalate just one more step against Russia, and people that want to back off. I do think this. I think that there are people that are powerful that want to end this whole Russia, war thing, the war with Russia thing, because they understand where this is all going, where this is going to end. There are some actors that understand where this is all going, where this is going to end, but their hands are tied. Like, if you're Macron, you can't say, yeah, that was really dumb. I shouldn't have done that, huh? Sorry, Putin, you can't do that.
Well,
So,
and that's the problem with all these guys, the Macrons, the Mertzes, the Starmers of the world. They've invested so much political capital into the globalist project because this is bigger than Ukraine. It's bigger than Russia. This is basically globalism versus nation state sovereignty, right? That's the real battle here. And these guys have put all of their political capital into Project WEF, right? So for them to back away from all of that, it's next to impossible for them because, like I said, this is what they've built Europe around, right? Europe is the neoliberal globalist model,
well, I think
right?
of it like this: like it's a war that has become maybe even existential for the European Union and NATO as a whole over
Oh,
time.
definitely. Yeah. Yep.
But it's a war that unnecessarily became I mean, and it looks like unnecessarily from our perspective, as far as we can tell, right? Like Europe unnecessarily did this, but maybe, like I was saying before, they just realized like this is gonna. You have to spend your way out of the disaster, right? You have to go big or go under. You have to nab a chunk of Ukraine, cut the Russians off, take over that market, um, have completely corrupted Ukraine, steal their shit, start growing Monsanto GMOs there, feed all of Europe on that. They were so sure of their plan, they even started banning farmers and stuff. But
Yep.
it did not happen. So okay, it didn't happen. Well, then why are we still doing this? And you can see that there is some difference of opinion. There's some people that you go to think tank land, and think tank land, they have to talk about, even as unrealistic and as propagandized as Atlantic Council think tank folks are, even they have to be like, yeah, we have an obvious problem, duh, because that's probably funding that we would be receiving. I don't know. I don't know if they would be funded by money allocated to Ukraine, probably not, but whatever. They were talking about the privacy of the Russian military and how they were, pretty good, Kellogg said. And I said to the people in the room, we'd kick their ass. So you know what? I'm just going to pull a Danny Davis, Lieutenant Colonel Danny Davis, say with what artillery, with what airplanes? What was the news? Like a significant portion of F-35s are not being built on time and are grounded because of lack of spare parts, because of supply chain issues. So yeah, right now we're like a massively overweight. Dude, it's going to take a lot of training and a lot of stuff for us to get into shape and get this shit going.
Well, I like that second comment that he made. Go up. And what I mean by that is don't take their statements at face value. They're not as good as Putin says they are. Okay, so here's my question. Why should I take Kelly's statements at face value? Like, why don't I take President Trump's statements at face value? Because it's President Trump who's been saying, yeah, we're short on rockets, we're short on shells. It's Vance saying that. It's Marco Rubio saying that. So, basically it's Hegseth that's saying that.
Who else?
So if you've got the rest of the American leadership saying, yeah, geez, our military isn't all that cracked up. It's cracked up it's to be. Why should I believe Kellogg, who's saying the exact opposite, right? So
and that's a good point, because if Kellogg is a shill for the military-industrial complex, there's absolutely no way you're ever going to say, yeah, you know what? We did produce some overpriced crap. You're going to say, no, we can take them. Right now, we got the best stuff. I mean, they're not as good as Putin says they are. So, they're as bad as you say they are, I guess.
And look at the recent drone excursion into Poland. Look no further than that as a perfect example. That's a real world case where the Polish themselves said that how many drones got in? 18 or something? 17, 18 drones?
I'm
19,
not mistaken.
Something like that.
I think it was 18, but I'm not
sure.
Yeah,
I think it was 18. And they only shot down 4 of them, 3 or 4 of them. So what does that tell you about their air defenses, right? So Kellogg doesn't know what he's talking about. Man.
He must know it's bullshit. This is what it is. Like, you were so right. The more that I think about it, the more I dissect his statements, the more
he's a paid liar. right? He's a paid liar.
It
That's
just
all.
makes sense because his lies all line up in the same way. They may make movements, it seems, so they're advancing in the Donbass region of the Donetsk. But if you consider advancing moving by meters, not miles, well then, okay, that's successful. But but the cost they're having is enormous, and I don't think people truly appreciate it. Manpower-wise, the cost to Russia has been well over 1 million when considering the total troops dead and wounded. He said, noting that the Soviet Union left Afghanistan after losing 18,000. Yeah, that. The adage is true. Just literally spin the numbers upside down. Because what happened? We just recently got the leaks that it was like 1.7 million Ukrainians that had been like dead and injured or something, or dead and missing something. So yeah, they literally the Ukrainians just use their casualty figures and say that's Russia's casualty figures.
Well, just look at the casualty exchanges that have been going on the last several months. The Russians will send the Ukrainians like 1,000 bodies, and the Ukrainians will send back 20 or 30. You know. So
I actually agree with him here. Yeah, well, that tells you that I'm gonna guess the Ukrainians don't have that many bodies. Kellogg credited the Ukrainian military for taking Moscow's forces down a couple notches, noting that no one should be afraid of the Russian military. It's a nuclear power. Check that box. I've got that, but I don't believe they've got the capacity that they had, that they could march towards Berlin or anywhere else. Actually, I agree with him here. Yeah, I don't think the Russians could march on Berlin. Right now,
yeah, I don't think they could either, and I don't think they've ever wanted to. Like, they've never built their military around that, or at least they haven't since I've been alive. You know, yeah,
dude. Okay, so this is okay. Fine. The last thing for Keith Kellogg. It's the end of the article. Okay, I just really obsessed over this Keith Kellogg thing. Kellogg also told Western partners to quote raise their risk level when dealing with Putin, calling on Europeans to take more decisive action against Moscow, including by stopping purchases of Russian oil, which Trump has said is the main source of income fueling the Kremlin's war machine. We're back at the thing. Remember what I say about looking for the lost keys? They got to be here. The oil sanctions, it has to work. You've got to apply absolute economic pressures. And this means you got to put some risk into the game. He said, you're going to have to make a hard call. And when you talk about the oil shut down the revenue, it's a petrol state. Okay, this is Trump's advisor. This is Trump's envoy. This is who the Russians mysteriously, I wonder why, did not said this person is inadequate for the job. Does that sound somebody adequate for the job?
Sorry, it's the same message that they've had the last 3.5 years, which is, you know, the ruble will be rubble, right? And the Russian economy will be in tatters and blah, 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 blah. And here we are 19 sanctions packages into it. And the Russians have stood up to it. So, they've got nothing left if they ever had anything. And that's why I'm saying this is going to end sooner than later, because Europe is sobering up right now. And that's why you don't hear anything from them. Like, Trump came out with this big demand. You guys need to cut off India. You need to cut off China if you want us to. And I'll be right there with you, blah, blah, blah. What response have you heard from any of the European capitals on this? Zero. Right? Exactly. They don't want to talk about it. But I think that behind the scenes, they're sobering up to, okay, he called our bluff. He's not wrong. So we either put up or shut up. And it sounds like we're going to shut up. So like I said, I think that they don't have the cash.
The reason why they're continuing to say the same narrative is because they're just getting ready for the stab in the back.
Yes. Yep.
So they could be like, everything was going to plan. We were winning. The Russians were losing. And then out of nowhere, I don't know who they're going to blame it on.
Oh, well, that's baked into the cake too. They're figuring that out too. They need to figure out a way to pin all this on Zelensky, right?
Well, and pin it on Trump.
Or Trump for, you know, a combination of the two. So Trump will blame it on Europe. Europe will blame it on Trump or Zelensky. And that'll just be how it is, right? But the reality is everybody in the world sees that it's actually the fault of the Americans and the Europeans. And, you know, for as long as it takes was 3 years. That's it.
Yeah, NATO picked a fight with Putin and then, you know, found out the hard way, like effed around and found out, right? That's the saying, fucked around and found out. Don't fucked around and found out. And it's like, reminds me of that moment where the Russians were saying like, "Who's laughing now? Look, we have the Kinjal." I think they were debuting the Kinjal or something. We have this hypersonic missile. We have the S-400 or S-500 coming out. Whatever. Who's laughing now? I think we didn't get it. I think we were still laughing then. I remember Wesley Clark. I'll just never forget it. Laughing at the Russians, saying the Russians have this so-called science of war. And look at it now. We're like, yeah, you know what? The Russians do have a much more, we don't use the same like terms, but a much more holistic view of conflict, which includes things like economics and politics and diplomacy. When from the get-go, people like Mearsheimer were saying, Clausewitz, this is about the political objectives. Anyway, and just to your point about with what artillery are we going to win this imaginary war with the Russians? Imagining we could get those hundreds of thousands of troops there. For Golden Dome to work, it needs to be put to the test. Rigorous end-to-end systems.
I'll be right back.
Anyway, rigorous end-to-end systems testing is imperative and needs to happen soon for Golden Dome for America to be a success, according to this op-ed from Sarah Minero. Okay, Trump's initiative to protect the homeland from missile attacks, Golden Dome for America, is now underway. Initial funding was secured in the reconciliation bill, and the industry will soon be unleashed to contribute to the project. The technical challenges associated with implementing Golden Dome, however, will be significant. The efforts will require integrating disparate systems across vast distances and different domains, from space-based sensors to ground-based interceptors. You know what that sounds to me like? That sounds like, oh, looks like we're going to need a lot of money. We're going to need a lot of money to make this thing work. Kind of reminds me of the missiles that were supposed to replace the the Minuteman. Like, they still haven't replaced the Minuteman missile. And they, after taking like, I don't know how many freaking billions of dollars of funding to try to get the next version, the successor to the Minuteman. I don't remember what it's called. Despite all those billions of dollars, you know what they said, like it was 2 years ago or maybe 1 year ago? They were like, yeah, we're not even close. And we're going to have to modernize the Minuteman. And the whole reason why we even approved this whole new system and spent all these billions of dollars that has apparently just poofed and vanished is because they initially said the Minuteman system can't be updated. Now that they have to, they're like, oh, I guess necessity is the mother of invention, huh? How you like them toaster ovens? Anyway, among many other challenges, rigorous and calibrated E-to-E testing is an essential but underappreciated component to ensure the Golden Dome functions at the highest possible level. Blah, blah, blah. This is bullshit, right? They know. So this is what it is. Like, Donald Trump, this is his gift to the military-industrial complex, this Golden Dome thing. And then when people look at it, they're like, yeah, it's going to be a huge problem. And these people are morons, because it's going to be a huge problem that doesn't get solved. You know how it's going to get solved? It's going to get solved like the Minuteman missile sequel, the sequel to the missile, right? The replacement for the Minuteman missile. They're going to spend a lot of money, getting a lot of folks rich, buying a lot of Lamborghinis and yachts, and in the end, there's going to be no Golden Dome. There's not going to be a motherfucking Golden Dome. It can't be done. Even if Israel is, think about how much smaller Israel is, how much oversaturated Israel is with air defense stuff, and they can't even do it. You think it's possible to pull that off here? Nah, this is BS. They're selling you a bridge. They're selling you a bridge. This is crap, just so you know. It's obvious to everybody except for Donald Trump. Maybe it's even obvious for Donald Trump. Maybe it's him securing his financial legacy for his family in the future, when they say, yeah, you know what, some of those billions that went to funding the Golden Dome system, well, you know what, they magically ended up helping Trump afford Mar-a-Lago or whatever it is. I don't know.
Well, all of this is theater, because the reality is all of these Western countries, we're all broke, right? We're all broke. So how do we expect to build a Golden Dome in North America? It's fantasy. How are we expected to buy all these weapons in Europe? It's fantasy. It's all fantasy, because we don't have any money and people don't support this at all. So trying to do it will lead to what you're seeing in the UK right now and what
Yep.
you're seeing in France right now. You're just going to have revolts everywhere. And that's why I'm saying it's going to end sooner than later, because I think they're going to have to sober up faster than they have been, right? And like it's going to get violent in France, you know that. And the UK looks like it's on the border of just like complete carnage. And Germany, I don't think is that far behind it. Germany will be the wild card. Like they're going to be the ones that when they snap, they're really going to snap.
Mhm.
So and then there's the
I
U.S.
don't
The
know.
U.S. doesn't have a pot to piss in. So like, where's all this money going to come from? It's not. It doesn't exist.
Yeah,
So,
you're
and
not
you
gonna. Pr-
can't print anymore,
yeah, you're not gonna
right?
print your way out of this one. Exactly.
You can't, because nobody's buying the debt. Like you look at, for example, some of the bond holdings and stuff. China has been cutting their holdings of U.S. bonds for the last 3 years, treasuries, and they're down to like 700, and they basically cut their treasury holdings in half in the last several years. And then the countries that have been propping the U.S. up, because the BRICS nations largely, they've been reducing their holdings of treasuries. So who's been picking up the slack? It's all the vassals. It's Canada.
Mhm.
It's the UK.
It's
It's
the UK.
Japan, right? But here's the thing. If you look at the latest numbers, they're starting to not be able to afford it either. Like Canada, for example, we,
Yeah.
we cut our holdings of US treasuries by like $50 billion in July. That's a lot to cut. So, and I think that, that's just going to be more representative of other Western nations too. Like Japan doesn't have the money to keep buying treasuries. They don't. And then you look at Saudi Arabia and other countries like that, they're not going to have any need for it because they're just going to sell oil in yuan, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They're gonna say,
So,
"Peace, suckers. We're done." Yeah, I can see where this is going.
well, it's already
We're
happening.
taking our
Did you read about the Pakistan agreement today?
no.
Oh, so Pakistan and Saudi Arabia announced a security pact today, which includes nuclear. Basically, it's a Article 5 type deal. Attack on one is an attack on all kind of shit. And they said it includes Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. So now the UAE and Qatar, they're looking to join this pact as well, because after what happened to Qatar the other day, why wouldn't you? Right. So I guess what I'm saying is like the whole security architecture of the Middle East, it's going to change really rapidly, I think. Right. And this agreement between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, if that extends to the other Middle Eastern countries too, what do you need the US for? Right. You don't. And
It's interesting.
It's not like Saudi Arabia sells a whole lot of oil to the US anymore. They don't.
Yeah.
So like it makes sense for everybody. It makes sense for Saudi Arabia to cozy up to China. And it makes sense for the US to back out of Saudi Arabia. Because like what are they getting out of it
Mm,
anymore? If 50 years ago they were buying a lot of oil,
no, they
they're not buying
can't.
that much oil anymore.
They still have to be able to maintain the ability to put the pressure on with that. So I think, like
Yeah,
right
but
now, they're not in a position to put that diplomatic and political and internal pressure on the Saudis to be able to say, like, no, you're not selling shit in yuan. But
yeah,
they
but
want to
the,
maintain.
but the Saudis don't care. Like if the Saudis sign this Pakistan deal, which they did, and they've already started selling
Well, back to what I
oil in
was
yuan.
saying. Then what are you hoping for? What is this? Hopium? Copium? Like,
I'm
well,
not hoping for anything, but I think that you're going to see the U.S. leave Saudi Arabia sooner than later, because the Saudis will kick them out eventually. They don't need them.
I don't
Just
know. I think
watch.
it's going to be harder to kick us out than you say. I think that we're going to fight tooth and nail. But although I think that we would have fought tooth and nail to stay in Iran, and we ended up getting kicked out of Iran too. So, but anyway, so I guess let's move on to two scoops of crazy. I still have more shit that I want to talk about, and I didn't go through all the stories I had. I was talking about, but I want to talk about. But I guess we spent a lot on Kellogg, much to Nunya's dismay. Oh, let me move off my Yeah, okay. I'll just touch on this. Northrop Grumman offers made in USA microelectronics to partner firms. I don't know what kind of microelectronics like process they have. Let me see here. How do I share your video?
Oops.
All right,
Sorry.
guys. I don't know what kind of process they have, but basically, hey man, they gun for Intel's shit. They're trying to pawn off their excess capacity, their excess manufacturing capacity to commercial uses. Probably some low end shit. But okay, let's do the 2 scoops.
All right.
Are you trying to sell your goat under $50? Yeah, bro. This is my town. Oh my gosh, dude. So I thought this one was really adorable. It's like, it's not that he knows what this is, but it's just like, what is this thing doing in my like periphery, in my vicinity? It's like, for some animals, like definitely for goats, they've lost a lot of goats have lost their lives throughout history. Let me just tell you this as somebody who's had goats before. Many a goat has lost their lives due to annoying behavior shit. Like many a goat has just like, it was unplanned. You were going to like still live and stuff, but you're going to wind up dinner. Like, see, like this is like a soft version of that. They're like, listen, we've had enough of this guy. Please take him for $150. And maybe they're like, okay, listen, we can't sell him. We can't say free to a good home. Everybody's going to know what's going on. So we got to we got to do a not unsuspicious price. But I think that actually, if that is the only sign that is selling the goat, this is a great advertisement for what you're getting yourself into. So $150 and a shit ton of crazy. One time, so when I was a kid, this is how crazy goats are. When I was a kid, me and I think it was my cousin. Was he my cousin or my friend? Me and my cousin fed a shoe to a goat, his sister's shoe, and it ate the shoe.
Okay.
It ate legit, straight up ate the whole shoe, metal parts included, the heel included, all of it. So yeah, dude, goats, they go hard. And you know what? Goats were used in a type of medieval torture. So a kind of form of punishment in the medieval days would be like to put salt on people's feet and then let goats lick their toes. And like, I guess they lick and they bite and and it's like really, really deeply unsettling because you don't want to lose your toes, but you can't do anything about it because they like lock you up. So they actually use goats for torture. These guys are ornery. But anyway, I guess that is our episode 30 of Hell in a Handbasket. Next time we'll focus on whatever Nunya wants to focus on. Like, Nunya, you choose the stories, because I mean, I had so much more to say about this whole Kellogg thing. I thought it was crazy that this dude is out there just saying this shit, but okay.
But it's the same old shit, though. That's the thing. Like, nothing from that guy's mouth has changed since he came on board.
He just pretended to be an adult. He pretended like he understood what was going on and like he was an adult and he was ready to have this conversation and this discussion, and that's how the media treated him. And all along, I mean, people like us, we had this sneaking suspicion that this guy's a freaking moron and you shouldn't be listening to him. But I mean, he just laid it out for us all. Okay, that is episode 30. Thank you, everybody who watches our ramblings and musings. Peace.
Later.
Okay. I think I pressed the button. Oh, now I have.